These fools, they'll never learn.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Food for Thought Kungfusations. If you're not familiar with this particular series, it's where I sit down with someone who's knee-deep, neck-deep, whatever you want to say, in the Kung Fu cinema genre, whether it's someone who is actually part of Kung Fu movies, someone who has a YouTube channel, someone who's just a fan of the genre. We sit down and we just chat Kung Fu. Simple as that. Very, very simple premise, nothing, just a free-flowing conversation. And I am very, very honored, absolutely honored to have the guest on today. For those of you that don't know, kind of Kung Fu movies is my big passion, but I actually have another passion as well. And that passion happens to be hip hop music. I've been a massive fan of hip hop since I was an early teen, probably back in the days of Warren G. So I kind of started listening to hip hop probably around the same time I got into Kung Fu movies. And I'm lucky enough to have today on with me a beat-making supreme, a producer extraordinaire. Let's bring him on. I have Elaquent with me. How you doing?
I'm good. Like I said before, man, super happy to be here and
Awesome.
just to chop it up. I mean, we've had some conversations like in the DMs, mostly just about movies and things that we like in certain directors and choreographers. But yeah, this is the first time we're actually having like a real conversation. So
Yeah, absolutely. I'm absolutely honored. This is my pleasure. I love this. I guess my first question would be kind of, I suppose, the obvious one, and that is, when and how did you get into martial arts cinema?
so I mean, I've always just dug action movies and screen fighting in general. Um, so when I was a kid, you'd see, I'd see stuff on TV, mostly just Hollywood, Steven Seagal or
Mm-hmm.
everyone loves Kickboxer or whatever. Um, so I always thought it was cool, but I think for me, being a big hip hop guy, hip hop fan, and it's probably cliche to say, but Wu Tang really got me, at least as far as the Hong Kong stuff specifically. So
Yeah.
you listen to the albums and you hear all these cool and now iconic samples. I remember when I was in early high school, so I would have been 14, 15 or so at the time, and just always being, I think I was watching an old Wu Tang video, and
Yeah.
and I think the gravel pit video actually had some actual like hand to hand
It did.
like
It did.
fighting in it. Yeah, and there's a couple others that did too, but I remember just being fascinated by it. And then, I think I was at like a Walmart or something, and at the time they had a bunch of VHS tapes like on like for like a couple bucks,
Yeah.
and I remember, okay, well, let me actually really dive into it. And so like I bought um Fists of Fury, which I later
Okay.
found out was Big Boss, and so I think that was like the first like old school movie that I seen. And then, like I went right back to the store the next day to get some more. And I found, it was I think it was a Mei Feng movie. It was like, it was Prodigal Boxer, but I think
Okay.
the thing said, Kung Fu Punch of Death or something like that.
Of
And,
course.
I mean, I used to, and I'd just keep like just watching and running it back, and like, yo, like this is so cool. Like it's ancient, it's old. So I hadn't even gotten into the shape stuff yet.
Yeah.
But I just thought that was super cool. And around the time, it's like, like I really enjoy this. I want to learn more about it. There used to be a website on the net called kungfucinema.com,
Yep.
and and they had reviews, and the way that they did it was dope, because they had they'd list the movie and they'd give it a star review and like a detailed write up, and then the and there are hyperlinks to the directors and the stars. So
Mm-hmm.
if I like this one movie, I could click on it and then see everything else that they did. And so just this big spider web sort of emerged where it's like, okay, I like this movie, I like this actor, let me see more. And eventually it
Nice.
just kept expanding. I started getting into modern stuff, or the wire foo, so to speak.
Yeah.
Um, but I think for me, I remember always hearing about Drunken Master, like
Mm-hmm.
and I bought the VHS for the Legend of the Drunken Master, which is really Drunken Master 2.
Yeah.
And that movie just blew my fucking mind. And, and then that led me to a path of finding the original Drunken Master. And
Nice.
that was probably the first like true shapes movie that I ever saw. And that just changed my life. Like, I was a big fan, and after I saw that, I was just full on like obsessed. You know.
Yeah, that's real nice. Drunken Master was my first as well. My brother came to my room one day and just literally handed me a VHS and said, "You need to watch this film." And I watched it, and same here. I sat down and I was absolutely blown away. I rewound the tape, watched it
Mhm.
again immediately, and then I just said, where the hell can I find more of this stuff?
Well, I mean, I was stunned because at that point, I'd been maybe a year into my like what I'd call a deep fandom,
Hmm.
and I'd watched some Jet Li movies and so the natural thinking is that, oh well, the stuff is more, at that time was only 10 years old, so
Yeah.
obviously it has to be much better than the stuff they did in the 70s. So like I went from like bashers to wire foo to
Interesting.
and then discovered shapes sort of at the end, and I'm watching it like wait a minute, like this is all one take.
Yep.
Wait a minute, these guys are really really doing this shit. um and it's like dude, it's like they're doing like 15, 16, 17 moves per take, and it's acrobatic, and you're watching it and seeing what Jackie's done later, it's like, oh, it's like you can tell that's sort of the movie where he sort of put it all together.
Right.
So and it's fascinating to me, just just understanding like when things come out in the year. And I feel like it was around 76 or so when, the like they started really going crazy with the
Yep.
choreography.
Hmm.
And then once they hit about 78, 79, like I think
It
from
took off.
70, I'd say 78 through to about 80, maybe 81 was just at its apex in terms of creativity. And,
Yeah.
it's hard to imagine how they're able to do that stuff. And I guess when you're sort of your first introduction to screen fighting is Hollywood stuff, and for years I just thought, oh well, this Jean Claude Van Damme movie is pretty good,
Yeah.
and
He's the
not to
best.
say it right, and Steven Seagal, no one's touching him, and and then I sort of come to realize, oh wait a minute, it's not just a time thing. It's a Hong Kong thing.
Yeah.
Like they just go so much harder, and there's so much more attention to detail, and just philosophically, it just comes from a different place. And discovering that just really made me just rethink. Because I think there's a little bit of a superiority complex amongst American media,
Hmm.
like America can do no wrong and everyone else is catching up. Come to find out, it's the other way around.
Yes. Yes. Absolutely. That's interesting. I guess I would say I was forced into liking Van Damme at a young age because my mom had a crush on Van Damme. So she kind of started buying, or not even buying films. She was actually taping them off the TV and putting them on VHS for me. So I remember she bought a big clamshell VHS of, I don't know what it's called here. In the UK it was AWOL, and it's here, is it Lionheart? Is that what it's called?
Oh yeah, Lionheart Studio.
Okay. Yeah, my mum bought a VHS of that, and that was my go-to. That was like the peak of action cinema for me, which is really strange because I'd seen Bloodsport and seen Kickboxer, but for some odd reason, Lionheart was just like the shit for me. It was just the greatest film of all time. And then, yeah, my brother handed me Drunken Master, and it's funny you mention Wu Tang, because everyone obviously talks about Wu Tang and the Kung Fu samples and all that good stuff. But I always felt like with Wu Tang that there was a degree of like almost for those familiar with hip hop, you'll probably be familiar with this term. Obviously, you're familiar with this term, but like crate digging. I think there was a sense of like sample digging with Wu Tang, because I'd hear something and I'd be like, I haven't seen that film. I'd hear the sounds or the sample, and I'd be like, I haven't seen that. Allow me to demonstrate the skill of Shaolin. I didn't know what that film was. I had no idea. And I was just like, what is it? I have to find it. And then, maybe a few months later, I picked up Shaolin versus Lama, and I was like, oh, here it is. I found it. So Wu-Tang, I don't think people give it enough respect, because it definitely introduced not only the idea of Kung Fu cinema to a lot of people, but it was those little samples where you're just like, even the fight scenes, you'd hear the hits and you'd be like, that's not familiar. What is that from? And then when you finally come to recognize it, you're like, oh, this is the shit. This is the one they were sampling. It's great stuff.
It's funny you mention that, because I remember towards the end of high school, because again, I was always I was always a VHS guy. That's all we had or could afford at the time. And then I remember like I bought myself like after I like got a job, like I bought myself a DVD player, and I remember the first DVD that I bought was it was a Fox release of Magnificent Butcher. So speaking of Drunken Master, I mean, I hold that one in just as high regard. But the second one that I bought, it Xenon Pictures put it out. It was called Wu Tang Clan. And I was just like, I mean, come on now. And I'm looking at the back of it, and and it's a T Lung movie. Now I found out years later it's actually the movie The Heroes. Which, in my opinion, is one of the most underrated movies ever.
Is that the one with Michael Chan Wai Man?
Yes,
well?
yes, it is.
Okay,
yes, it is.
Good flick, great flick. Yeah,
great flick. I mean, and I know like kung fu movies kind of just have this, like old school ones have a reputation for just having like bad stories or no story, and and some of that kind of sometimes holds weight, but but that was I thought it was just a really touching story, and again, that was another one where it's like I saw T Lung kind of play Wong Ki-ying in Drunken Master 2, and he had like a really like a short action cameo, and then finding out, like looking at the back of the DVD and finding out that, oh, hey, that's that same guy.
Yeah,
cool. Let me see what he used to cook up, when he was younger, and yeah, he went pretty crazy on it. Anyways, I say all of that to say, just that name, Wu Tang, and knowing that okay, there's some type of a link between like this rap group that I really love and this film, and I mean, I could be wrong, but I didn't find any samples or anything that I recognize in any songs, but then I also used to see these DVDs that Ground Zero used to put out, and they would literally just slap the Wu-Tang like logo, and when you load up those DVDs, like there's usually like an intro from like 1992 or some shit of just all of them just talking about, oh yeah, kung fu movies are dope, and like they milked the hell out of the out of the name to push those.
Ground Zero were crazy. They honestly released about 7 chess boxing films where they renamed a bunch of old school ones to chess boxing. And it was nuts. It's like, here's our chess boxing collection. And you literally have to work out what they were.
If you see that Wu Tang logo on the DVD, there's a 90% chance whatever the movie's title is not the actual title, but you know, they knew who they were marketing it to.
Absolutely.
But honestly, it worked. You know, and I mean, I had to sort of take some L's because, you know, some of those movies were frankly shit. But there's a couple hits there, you know.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that was a hazard of the hobby, right? Collecting it, then coming across some absolute garbage films. But that again, with Ground Zero, you never knew what you were going to get. You just plus also Xenon and Ground Zero. At the end of the day, they looked like VHS rips. Like they were taken.
100%.
They looked at full screen, cropped, awful, absolutely awful,
pixelated, and they had the nerve to put on the back remastered. Like get the fuck out of here. Like,
I think I just recently I got a whole bunch. I got rid of a whole bunch of DVDs that I had. I'm kind of sticking to Blu-rays these days, and I think I had, which one was it? I think I had it was Clan of the White Lotus, that they call Fist of the White Lotus, and I put it in my DVD player not that long ago. And I was just like, how did I sit through this? How did I watch this absolutely atrocious version of this film?
It's funny because I literally picked up that same Ground Zero Fist of the White Lotus DVD literally like maybe 3 months ago.
Nice.
Because you know, for some reason Arrow or 88 Films hasn't put it out yet. And I'm waiting for I'm waiting for that definitive version of that movie. That, you know, is in widescreen, good picture. I think I heard on the Food for Thought podcast a few times that you're strictly like a subtitle guy. You don't really dig the English dubs. Is that true?
It's such a difficult question, right? So I love the dubs. I absolutely love the dubs. I'll go on record saying that. So I adore old school dubs, and most of the time the way it works for me is 70s films, unless I'm watching it with my wife. 70s films dubbed, but I'll always watch them subtitled first. So I'll watch the subtitle version, then I'll move on to the dub because I love the classic lines. I just love dubs. Then round about, I'd probably say like 80, for some odd reason, like 83 and onwards, I'll watch subtitled for some reason. I won't watch dubbed. And then
the dubs kind of got really cringy around like the mid 80s.
Yeah, exactly.
Like sometimes it's charming, but a lot of them it's just like, okay, now it's actually taking me out of the immersion.
Right.
You know?
And then 90s are very, very difficult because 90s have classic dubs and really good dubs, but then you get a lot of titles like Miramax did new dubs for them, and they're awful. They're absolutely terrible. So it's finding the right dub track for the 90s films. So 90s, I lean more towards subs, but if I know there's a decent dub track, I'll definitely watch them dubbed.
Yeah, like when I scoop up like old school, you know, bashers or shape anything in the 70s, early 80s. I mean, I'm always but ideally for me, the Blu-ray or the DVD will have the original Mandarin or Cantonese, depending on where it came from. The original English track is an option, and subtitles. Because I mean, I'll be like, I'm one of those weirdos that will watch something with like the English language dub track, but I'll still put the subtitles on.
Yeah. Okay.
And ideally there'll be like actual subtitles, not just dub titles.
Oh God.
Like one of the beefs I kind of have with some of the 88 films, or maybe it's some of the Arrow movies, where it's like it has the English subtitles, but for some reason, if I put on the English audio track, it basically just turns off the subtitles.
Removes them.
So I can't have both of them on at the same time, and I get why they do it, but it's like come on, like
Yeah.
think of people like me. You know?
Yeah, and more people are doing that. I'm finding more people are doing that just with like Netflix shows, for example.
100%.
More people are just watching them in English, but also having English subtitles at the same time. Understandable, really.
Well, because I like that. I mean, when I'm watching something, and if I get distracted or so forth, I mean, I like that. Well, the English track's there, so I can still overhear it, so I'm not missing anything. But just with the virtue of like just translations and so forth, there's often much more critical information in the subtitle that like little minor things that you miss. Like there are some movies that I've watched dubbed, and and it's great and I enjoy it, and then after the fact I'll watch it subtitled, and there's like these little minute details that I just didn't know about, which just adds context to whatever it is I'm watching.
Absolutely. Even big things. For example, Drunken Master back in the day, the VHS version that I had was the Made in Hong Kong UK version. And Jackie Chan in that film on the dub track is Freddie Wong. For the longest time, I knew him as Freddie Wong. It was years later where I was just like, oh shit, that's Wong Fei Hung. That's unbelievable. It's Wong Fei Hung.
Exactly the same. I didn't know that. Well, I think what sort of gave it away was, at least for me, was like, because like I basically watched the sequel before I watched the original one, and in the sequel, like in all versions, as far as I'm aware, it's Wong Fei Hung, and so when I'm watching the original and it's like, oh, it's Freddie Wong. Who the fuck is Freddie? Okay, so clearly there's no link between these two movies, and then I find out later, oh wait, he's actually the same character in both of them.
Exactly.
So, okay, so it really is a prequel, sequel, whatever you want to call it.
Yeah, it's fascinating how there is almost like a culture a subculture built within the kung fu cinema culture where you can compare dub tracks and you can dig deep on like dub tracks and subtitle tracks and things like that. Because one of the fascinating things I find is that most for example, most Americans grew up with Huang Zhang Li in Drunken Master, known as Rubberleg. I grew up with knowing him as Thunderfoot.
Yep.
Yeah, and I thought it was very, very fascinating. And it was years later when I actually came to this country, and I think I just picked up a DVD of Drunken Master, and I was just like, "What the fuck is this? This isn't Rubberleg. This is goddamn Thunderfoot." And I was like, "No, they've got this completely wrong." And then I watched Dance of the Drunken Mantis, and he's Rubberleg in that as well. And I was just like, oh shit, okay, he's maybe he is Rubberleg and not Thunderfoot after all. But that UK dub of Drunken Master is easily my favorite. It's stuck with me. It has some wild lines in it as well.
Yeah, see, that same version of Drunken Master was the original one I saw, the Freddie Wong version.
Yeah,
and I remember just many years later, like I think I was at some store, just looking around at DVDs, and I see a Drunken Master, and I'm like, interesting. This isn't the one that I think Fox produced or whatever. And because another thing that threw me off was because I would always read online about, Sam Seed is the truth, and he's this amazing character. So in the version that we initially saw, I mean, he's just called So High.
Yep.
Like, who the fuck is Sam Seed? And so, like, I bought that DVD, not realizing it, but I guess that was like the actual original dub for it. Where, I mean, admittedly, Jackie sounds way goofier, but Sam Seed is this actual character, and and I'm actually a little bit torn because I hate that they recalled him Freddie Wong and Rubber Legs and all that, but the actual dub itself is hilarious. Like some of the one-liners,
Oh, it's
especially
wild.
from Huang Zhangli, like
Oh,
when he's beating the shit out of Jackie, like in the forest or whatever, like
yes,
before he learns the drunken style, and he's like, "Oh, that's your kung fu. Like I wouldn't wipe the shit out of my damned asshole with it, or whatever."
absolutely.
Just
He goes, go and clean shit and piss holes. Jesus, fucking hell, calm down. That's
yikes, like
rough.
bro, like I mean, I get that you're better than this fool at the time, but like yo, what did you really do? Like bro was trying to just like dry his pants in a place that he shouldn't have.
Yes.
Like I need you to put it all into perspective. Like it's not that serious to
Yeah,
beat this guy
it's
half to death.
wild. I used to quote that dub so much. I used to do the whole well, I can't 30% feast, 30% fist, 70% feet. Huang Zhang Li throwing that line out. But in the American dub, he says something even weirder, like hands open windows, but feet kick down doors. It's just like,
Yeah,
okay, fine. It's the
the
difference
original dub
between the
does
dubs.
the original dub doesn't hit the same. I'm not gonna lie, but
It's
like
so
Freddie Wong and some of the weird shit aside, it's like those one-liners just put it over the top.
yeah, the crazy thing is, like, I don't even know how this ended up being this, but I remember buying. So I remember Sam Seed, right? Everyone knows Sam Seed, which is for those that don't know, it's Yun Shu Qian's character in Drunken Master, aka like Beggar So or the Beggar, and I remember buying a VHS and it said featuring. It didn't say the actor's name. It didn't say Yun Shu Qian. Instead, it said Sam, and they changed it to Sam the Seed. So it was featuring Sam the Seed, and I was just like, "What are they doing? Are they just evolving and like changing names as they go?" And yeah, it was actually a real ripoff because the film was World of Drunken Master, where he
Mm.
appears in the opening credits, and that is it. He's not in the actual film itself.
Yeah, I saw that I think you posted on it about that or a scene from it on the on your IG page
Mhm.
not very long ago. Um, are you a fan of that one, The World of Drunken Master?
Do you know what? I really am. I know a lot of people aren't, and I absolutely love that film. But for some bizarre reason, I am really into a lot of those Joseph Quo films because I'm one of the few that likes 36 Deadly Styles. I know a lot of people don't like that film. And I absolutely adore it. I think it's fantastic. I don't know whether it's just the fight choreography or what, but yeah, I love them.
The well, since you brought that up, um, it's one of those movies like I found it randomly on DVD somewhere, and when and I know you collect a lot of movies where you know you've,
Hmm.
you own things for like months, if not years, and then don't even realize, oh shit, this has been in my collection for like 8 months and I still haven't watched it.
Yep.
So that's one of those movies. I mean, I've seen it once, and I remember liking the fight choreography a lot. Um, but I don't remember anything else about that movie in terms of like the story or
Yeah.
so forth. So that's one of those ones I gotta like sit down and you know devote 90 minutes and watch front to back.
It's dope.
But but
It's a dope
but in
film.
general, Joseph Quo, I mean, he's got way more hits than misses. I
Yes.
like World of Drunken Master.
Hmm.
I guess the tricky thing with those movies, like the drunken boxing ones in particular, are that nobody does drunken boxing like Jackie,
No.
and the fact that he like legitimately looks wasted when he's doing it. It's the same thing with it's another Mei Feng movie. It's like Kung Fu with the Eight Drunkards.
Yeah, good film.
Um, yeah, good film, but I don't know. Maybe I just had this expectation of these drunken boxers to actually get shit faced.
Yep. Yep.
Because it looks too clean. Like I like to see the stumbling and the not having all your wits to you.
Yes.
That sort of element of it. But objectively, the World of Drunken Master is dope. I hate that they gave Simon Yoon all that billing, and he literally just has like a like a 20-second cameo in the beginning of the
Nuts.
movie. It's like you
Nuts.
don't have to do this, but
No. I don't even know why they chose to do that. It's such a bizarre choice.
I mean, I get that they're trying to to link,
cash in,
I guess,
essentially.
to cash in and sort of create that link between this original film that, from what I understand, was like doing box office records in Hong Kong at the time it came out. So, hey guys, you see him, Simon Yoon, Sam Seed? Yeah, he's he walks around for a little bit in the beginning, so therefore you got to tap in and check this out.
Yeah,
But
it's wild.
but the fights are dope. Fights are dope
Yeah.
though.
Yeah. Speaking of drunken boxing, I suppose I have to ask you this question: do you have a particular favorite style of old school kung fu films? Do you like one over the other?
Um, like most things in life, I mean, depending on the day you ask me, you might get a different answer. Um, I love so as far as a single favorite, I don't think I could give one, but drunken boxing is definitely a favorite of mine.
Mm-hmm.
I personally think Wing Chun is one of the most beautiful styles in
Ah,
terms of screen fighting, and not just the recent stuff with Donnie Yen
mm-hmm.
and whoever else. I mean, Sammo had that shit down to a science, and it just Prodigal Son just I when I saw that movie, and it was kind of one of those joints that had this big reputation, like
Yep.
Kung Fu Cinema gave it 4.5 or maybe 5 out of 5, and the people who like legitimately study Wing Chun reference that movie as like that's
Yes.
at least before Donnie, like
Yeah.
that's like the definitive Wing Chun movie, and oh boy is that shit pretty.
Unbelievable. No one gives Warriors 2 enough respect either.
I just picked up the Arrow
Oh,
release
nice.
of it, and because I had like the old Fox or 20th Century Fox
Yes.
version
Yeah.
of it, and like okay, quick rant. Those 20th Century Fox releases. It was awesome because like those DVDs at the time were super cheap. Like they're only like $12 or some shit.
Yeah.
And and they did a great job remastering the picture and everything. But the thing that drove me crazy about them, um, well, they never used the original old school dub,
Yep.
which always bothered me. But worst off, they took all of these liberties with the audio track, and they would add these like extra, I guess, more
Yeah.
impactful like punch sounds and shit. And it's just, and I know, having not seen the original, like I know that's not what it sounded like.
Yeah.
So when I scooped up the Arrow one, and mind you, I hadn't watched it in probably 3 or 4 years at that
Mm-hmm.
point, and it's not as good as Prodigal Son, like choreography wise. But it's a fucking great movie, and Lin Kar-yan just like you forget that he's not actually like a trained martial artist. The
He's
way that he
bonkers in
moves,
that
and
film.
he's just so perfect for that role of Lung Jan.
Yeah.
And it's like, well, now that I'm seeing it with like the actual audio track that it should be,
Yeah.
and I hadn't seen it for a little while, and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, and it's like I like that movie way more after like a more recent viewing than probably I did from back in the day.
Yeah, I actually prefer it to Prodigal Son. I know a lot of people don't, and it's just my preference. For some reason, I just find it more accessible. I think
Well, I
Warriors 2 has
think
less comedy, I think.
I think that there's a well, I mean, it does have some comedy, but yeah,
Has Dean
it's
Shack in it, so it has to have comedy.
I agree. No, for sure, for sure. But I think the problem with Prodigal Son is now it has like incredible choreography and really cool like like the training scene and like the jungle is one of my favorite ones. But I don't know, the villain not really being truly hateable sort of detracts a little bit from me.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and there's something to just be said about just classic revenge flicks. I mean,
Yeah.
it's easier to invest in some of those characters as thin as they are, and like Yunbu, as amazing as he is, like he's kind of a dork in Prodigal Son, and he's a
Yeah.
very like unlikable character, at least until like the very very end.
Yeah, I agree.
And it's I remember and especially it has this reputation behind it. And I remember the first time I watched it, I'm like, okay, all right, the fight scenes are crazy. And I remember when it ended, I was kind of like, wait, that's it?
Yeah.
Like it. So yeah, like if I could take the fight choreography from Prodigal Son and then drop it into Warriors 2, you have the perfect Wing Chun movie.
Yeah, I think so. I think a 1-2 punch of those two is just something really glorious and something special about kung fu cinema. And I remember picking up Prodigal Son on VHS, and I remember watching it and watching Frankie Chan and going, "Who the fuck is this dude? I need more Frankie Chan." I remember not being able to find any because back then Outlaw Brothers wasn't available, and I was just like, "Who's Frankie Chan?" Then I found out, oh, he's a composer. So, years
Right,
later, I
right,
found out he's a composer.
and I was trying to figure out like, wait, is it actually the same person, or is this just another person who just has that name?
Hmm.
I'm gonna assume it's the same person, but yeah, Outlaw Brothers is literally the only other movie I've seen him in, and I'm sure he's been in some other things, but
He
yeah,
has.
he was great in Prodigal Son, and he's great in Outlaw Brothers too.
He's fantastic. He's fantastic. There's oh my god, why can't I remember the name of the film? It's gonna really annoy me. He fights Jeff Falcon in like a they go to like a local fair and they fight each other and Frankie Chan pulls out the drunken boxing. Or is it
Oh,
or Jeff Falcon does one of the two. It's a really, really good fight scene. And for some odd reason, I'm just not remembering the name
I'll have
of
to
the film.
I'll have to check. Oh, when you find it, let me know.
Yeah,
I
oh,
definitely
definitely.
want to search that.
I definitely will. It's a hell of a fight. I don't know if the rest of the film is any good. I can't remember. But I know that fight scene is particularly good. I think I posted it on Instagram, but I just can't remember what the hell it was. But it's good stuff.
Yeah, you had mentioned before, when we were talking about like those shitty Ground Zero releases. I kind of have a weird like, and I just thought of it now. It's like I pick up some of those DVDs, um, and for me, like a big thing is I gotta have the widescreen
Yeah.
if available.
Hmm.
Watching a movie in widescreen versus like full screen, it's like night and day. But the I kind of dig the film grain and some of the
Yeah.
grain and stuff a little bit. And when they remaster it and it looks super clean, like someone shot it today, it's like that's dope. But I don't know. There's an element of like the film grain and it sort of feeling old
Absolutely.
that just really really sticks with me, and that's really why I bought that Fist of the White Lotus
Yeah.
DVD. And it has issues, but it's widescreen and it's old, and sometimes it sort of just puts me back. It almost just transports me back into like my nostalgia,
Yeah.
um, for how I first sort of saw like those old school movies. So
I
it's
understand.
it's a little bit of almost like a catch-22. Like I like it, but sometimes I don't.
Absolutely, I understand. I think it's always nice to have these films in pristine condition, remastered. They, 2K scans. It looks absolutely beautiful. But
Yep.
I watched recently. Oh my god, why? Oh, it's Gold Ninja. Gold Ninja Video put out Phantom Kung Fu, and they left the grain in. They left some of the grain in on some of the in some of the footage. And there's something about it that's just like, yep, this is how it should be. It's like the crackle of an old vinyl. It's
Yep.
something
Yep. Yep.
built into it that's just very, very appealing. And
Yeah,
yeah, I like it.
there's limits to it though.
Yeah,
Like I was just I was watching just the other day. Like I was watching the two Secret Rivals movies.
great flicks.
And I think yeah, great classics.
Yep,
And I believe Crash Cinema put out the original DVDs,
they did.
which I'm assuming were just VHS rips.
Yeah.
But I think the second one in particular, they're like any scene at night or in a dark setting is impossible to see, like
Yeah.
literally impossible.
Yes.
And it's and I get that they probably weren't thinking of it at the time, but I just like it felt like Shaw Brothers figured out how to shoot things like at night or in the dark, but Golden Harvest or these indie companies just couldn't figure it out. And the fact
Yeah.
that you know it, um, we had these bad VHS strips to begin with. It's like, oh, I see there's something going on. It's like I don't even bother. Like I remember the first time I saw Ninja in the Dragon's Den,
Hmm.
and Conan Lee fights Hiroyuki Sanada, like I guess in one of the palaces. Not like the big fight, but one of the earlier ones. And
Yeah.
the whole gimmick is that it's dark and it's and it's like I literally cannot see a single fucking thing on the screen, and it's
Awesome.
like they're probably killing it right now, and I'll never know. Um,
Yeah, it's nuts because even some of the like I recently I've been kind of digging a bit deeper and finding these old TV shows. Obviously, if anyone knows Rodney Shapes on Instagram, he is the king of
Rodney
TV.
Shapes,
Yeah, he's a
man.
legend.
It's before you go. I just it's funny because in the kung fu cinema days, and the forum was a big thing.
Yep.
And hell, this must have been 15 years ago, but he was always like that OG guy who like just knew everything about everything.
He's
So
unbelievable.
it's sort of like when I first discovered your IG page, and I think it came up on like my For You thing,
Yeah.
and I remember just watching a fight on your page and just scrolling through the comments, and I see like RDNN. Wait a minute, that's the same guy. Like
Yeah, he's unbelievable. The stuff he finds like is incredible, and
Yep.
he finds TV shows that I will never be able to find. But I've been digging a little bit and finding some old school ones. The night scenes in those are just exact. It's basically a black screen. You literally cannot see a thing. And the thing is, for some oh wait, my phone's talking to me. For some bizarre reason, TV shows or Hong Kong TV or Taiwanese TV shows, every single episode would have like 4 fight scenes at night, and they'd have so many of them, and you
What are
can't
you
see
guys
any of them.
doing?
Yeah, it's absolutely nuts. That's why I appreciate those remasters that really do nail actually lightening things up and making things more accessible again. But yeah,
Right.
night fight scenes, they're the bane of my existence.
Yeah. So yeah, the first time I saw Warriors 2,
Hmm.
which I think was like I think it might have been a full screen like VHS. Yeah, I think it was full screen, and and that awesome fight that Samo has with like the guy with the spear,
Yeah.
and it's maybe my favorite fight in that movie, first or
Hmm.
second for sure. Although I didn't feel that way at the time when I first saw it, especially when they get into the forum or into the forest. Like I can surmise what's happening. Like okay, it's in the dark, Wing
Yeah.
Chun, akin to the blindfold. So he's probably Chisaw, sticky hands. But then yeah, I was watching that Arrow, the Arrow release, and they cleaned up the picture, and it's like,
Yeah.
oh snap, it's in the dark, and I can actually see everything
It's
that's happening, and
unbelievable.
and you know what? Maybe that's part of the reason why I liked it much more the second or third go around.
Right?
Because like yeah, I can actually see that scene exactly the way that I'm sure Samuel intended it.
Yeah.
Perfect.
There's something about that. I remember. I think that's part of the reason why I like 36 Deadly Styles so much, because watching it again in the Eureka set that they put out, the Cinematic Vengeance set,
Yep.
It was like seeing it for the first time. Perfect widescreen, perfect picture. And I was just like, even Seven Grandmasters, watching that again, it just breathed new life into it. And seeing these films remastered that way, I mean, we can only hope that more and more get picked up. I mean, you mentioned them, the Secret Rivals films. I can only imagine if they got picked up and remastered. Speaking of Secret Rivals films, why doesn't anyone give Tino Wong any respect? That dude's dope.
He's underrated, man.
Yeah.
So the first, my first exposure to him was Jackie whooping his ass
Yep.
early in Drunken Master, but I mean he's got such a recognizable face, and
Yes.
so I saw Drunken Master way before. Like I didn't see Snake and the Eagle's Shadow until like maybe a couple years after the fact.
Okay.
And and he has a dope scene there. As far as I know, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, but like was Secret Rivals 2 his only like legit starring role?
From what I'm aware, that's definitely his biggest one. He may have a few like smaller independent films, although I am absolutely clueless when it comes to the names of them. So you might be right. That might literally be his only big starring role.
Yeah, because everything else I've seen him is kind of, like he's good for a good villain fight.
Yeah.
Like on the way to whoever the actual boss person is. But
right.
But I've always liked him, and I thought that he was Well, let me ask you this. Speaking of Secret Rivals, so obviously John Woo is in both movies. The original one, they pair him with Don Juan Tao, and obviously it's Tino Wong in the second. Which one do you prefer?
So that's interesting. I watched Secret Rivals. Probably the last time I watched them was a few years ago, but I felt like the step between the first one and the second one, there was such a step up to the second one. I think
the fighting was way better in the second one.
Unbelievably better. Really, really
Night
good.
And day. Crazy.
Yeah, to me, it's like it's Yuen Woo-ping, right?
Yuen Woo-ping did the second one.
The
first one, I want to say it was Tommy Lee.
Okay.
But I could be wrong. But I mean, Wu-Ping he didn't do the first one.
Yeah, I feel like it's really the second one is really Wu-Ping coming into his element. Like he's really starting to evolve and slowly sprinkle things in where you're just like, okay, he's one to really watch. And I think the first film, plot-wise and character-wise, I think I prefer. But the second one, I prefer in terms of fight scenes. So it's a balance.
I agree, 100%.
Yeah. I think if I was going to put one on just to watch, I'd probably put on the second one. But if I was just like, I really want to get engrossed in the characters and enjoy it a bit more, I'd definitely probably watch the first one.
Right. Yeah, and honestly, that was like a big part of my my fandom. So I realized very early on that okay, whoever this guy Yuen Woo-Ping is, like Iron Monkey is crazy. I love all the wire fu stuff that he's doing. Oh wait, he was a beast in the Shapes era too. And so a big thing for me when I started collecting movies was okay, I need to get any and everything that I see his name on as director or fight choreographer, and then ditto for Sammo, ditto for Lau Garlung, and and anyone else who's reputable in that space, Ching Su Tang.
Absolutely.
So and in particular, and I'll call them sort of the big three: Lau Garlung, Yuen Woo-Ping, Sammo Hung, and I get really fascinated just seeing their work across all eras.
Yes, I love that.
Yeah, and so knowing that okay, Fist of Legend is crazy, and Iron Monkey is crazy, and all the stuff he's doing in the '90s with wires is crazy, and okay, and all the shape stuff he's doing is crazy. Buddhist Fist. Doesn't get talked about enough.
But the final fight in that, crazy,
incredible.
crazy.
I mean, I'll put that up against. I'll put that up against Drunken Master.
Oh,
I'll put that
100%.
up on anything. I'll go so far as to say that's his best Shapes movie
I
to
think
date.
so. It's
And I actually kind of like
unfortunate.
some of the comedy.
It's unfortunate that it leans a little too heavily on the comedy, that one, I think. But
It
what
gets a little cringy in some parts. Yep.
yeah, but even the comedic fight scene with the guy who's doing the claw, the pale guy, it works though. It kind of works. So
Yeah.
I think, but that finale is just unbelievable. Maybe what that film probably came out. When was that? Buddhist Fist was later,
That movie
81,
that was
82.
80 or 81. 80
Okay,
or 81. Yeah.
that honestly will be put against any fight scene in the 80s. In the entirety of the 80s, that will be up there. That will be ranked up there.
Yeah, he was in his bag there. So I remember seeing
Unbelievable.
all of that, and then I'm just like, okay, well, Samo and Jackie kind of ran the '80s, and you didn't really hear much. At least I didn't hear much. His name brought up
Yep.
throughout the '80s, and I remember just seeing in the Line of Duty 4 and Tiger Cage 2. I named that one of my songs on my album
I
after
actually
that.
had a question about that. So
Yeah.
that track, the main question I have, why Tiger Cage 2? You have all these kung fu movies. You can name
Yeah.
a song. Why Tiger Cage 2?
Yeah, so basically, when I was putting the album together, a lot of it involved like super late night, 3 o'clock in the morning type shit, where I'm just
Yep.
making beats. And for me, whenever I'm making beats in the crib, usually I'll have, like my TV is kind of just on the other side of the room, and I usually have something going. And so it just so happens that I just picked up the Tiger Cage trilogy set.
Yep.
That was it 88 or
Yep.
was it
88, I think. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So, and I mean, I was actually did like that night, like I did a full Tiger Cage trilogy. So I watched
Nice.
all three of them in one sitting while working on the beat, and so it was kind of one of those things where like West Side Gun, for instance, will name a song after like a pro wrestler or
Yep.
something or someone that has absolutely nothing to do with the song itself.
Yes.
But it's just memorable, and for me, a big part of that album was kind of just like you know uh, rediscovering like my inner child, and kung fu movies have been a as big of a factor in my life
Yeah.
as hip hop itself. And I figured, you know what, like this shit is about me. Like this record's going to be have a lot of just nerdy innuendo. It's going to be very if you know, you know type shit. So when I named it Tiger Cage 2, and it's like, okay, I know that nobody outside of you and maybe and the homie GQ are gonna catch that shit
Shout
right
out
away.
to GQ. Shout out to him. He's awesome.
He's the bro, man. I love that guy like a brother.
Yeah.
But so yeah, I took some liberties and I put the like D&B intro like into the song's intro, and I just kind of wanted to see like, man, like no one's gonna catch this shit, but I'll know.
Real nice.
You'll know. A couple of the kung fu heads, and there's a few of them. They'll know.
Yeah.
But for me, it was just I had to figure out a way to get some kung fu shit on there, and I figured, well, if I put like an old school clip, folks will say I'm copying Wu Tang. So it's like, okay, well, let me take some shit from like the late '80s, early '90s that because they never really touched much, like post Shapes.
Yeah, what Raekwon the Killer a lot on Only Built for
Right,
Cuban Links, but that's about it, right?
Yeah, but it was very few and far between there. For sure.
That's so dope.
But I guess the original thing I was saying was, it was like looking up Wu Tang in the 80s, and I thought, how is he going to approach this? I guess at the time, new form of action, which is more centered around kickboxing
Hmm.
and practical martial arts rather than the like forms and tiger and all that
Yeah.
shit. And it's so unique and different than anything I saw Samo and Jackie doing. Like the fights are all like super short, they're brutal as hell,
Yeah. Oh
and
yeah.
there were never it was never that scenario of five guys running up on you and you somehow dodge and parry and avoid all punches and do some stylish. No, like hell, if any more than one person attacked you, like you're going to get popped in the face.
Yeah.
And I thought that was just such a unique approach. Like man, like no, I mean, I guess Jackie does that too. Like he takes his beatings in
Oh
all of
yeah.
his fights, but
Hmm.
and watching Tiger Cage too, and actually I think my favorite fight in the movie didn't involve Donnie. Robin Shaw just
Yeah.
beating the shit out of Buddy Man in that office was just like, yo, that shit was art to me.
Yeah, it took me a while to get back round to Tiger Cage 2. Actually, I only recently watched it again with the trilogy that was put out, and it had been a long time since funny enough, I hadn't actually seen Tiger Cage or Tiger Cage 3 for some reason. But watching them
Okay.
all, it just unbelievable. And Wu Ping, it's crazy that he's lasted so long, and even to this day, he puts out not every single thing he puts out is a winner, but when he does, for example, let's talk about Master Z for a second. I stand by that film being really good. I thoroughly
I
enjoy
think
Master Z.
it's I think Master Z. I mean, it's not as good as Yet Man One.
Hmm.
In my opinion, it's second or third.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah,
and it's funny because I mean I know that you said that. I think your opinion was that the second one was actually the best.
yeah. I upset a lot of
Was
people
it?
with that one, but
played,
yes,
played with
I
fire,
I
but
like the second one.
but personally, I would put the second one and Master Z kind of on like level playing fields.
Hmm.
Then Yip Man 3, then much further down 4.
Yeah.
But even 4, I mean, there's like I like all of the Donnie ones. Like I do enjoy.
Yes.
Um,
Yes.
but 1, Master Z, and 2 are kind of like the clear cut. But I mean, even Yip Man 3, like I feel like I gotta like rewatch it again. But
Yeah.
Max Chen
I'm
was great.
Yeah, he deserves way more than he's doing right now. Like he's doing what straight to streaming movies, and just the dude deserves so much more. And he was going to be in this big film coming out, the Kowloon Walled City film that's coming out.
Oh, I didn't know that.
That's Yeah, it's going to be. I mean, it looks like it's going to be huge. It's got some. It's going to be a serious kung fu film. Mac Zhang was originally in it, but then I think he either got dropped or he had to drop out. But it would have been such an amazing vehicle for him. But that's my most anticipated kung fu film. It's going to be so good.
Definitely have to check that one out.
Yeah, it's got a strange
But
name. It's called Warriors something now. I don't know. I'll
I
send
like
you a link.
appreciate that. But I do like that, and I don't know who engineered it, but I love sort of seeing these these like stunt guys and sort of like the leads of the choreography teams. It kind of reminded me of like the Man of Tai Chi.
Yeah,
And I like that Keanu Reeves put Tiger Chan in that role.
yeah.
And I don't know if he's done anything since then, but
Not a
like
lot.
reward these guys for being like talented people.
Yeah, Tiger Chen was. I love Man of Tai Chi, by the way. I think it's a super, super underrated film.
Underrated, absolutely.
Yeah, and Tiger Chen popped up again in Triple Threat.
Okay, okay.
And he, for me, in that film, despite Triple Threat having Scott Adkins, Tony Jaa, Michael Jai White, all these amazing people in it. Iko Uwais. Tiger Chen actually stands out to me in that film. I think he's the best performer in that entire film, but for some odd reason, he just hasn't taken off. He pops up again in like John Wick 3 as just an extra. So it's very strange. I think he's very talented. He just doesn't get the roles.
It is also possible, and I'm not saying that it applies necessarily, but it's possible that, you know, some of these guys might do the role and they might just feel like, you know what, we're more of a I'm more of like a behind the scenes kind of guy, and starring is just not really like me or my bag. Like from what I understand, I mean everyone loves Yun Bio, and he's a beast, and he's top 10 dead or alive in my opinion. But the word that I read, and I don't know how accurate it is, but Samuel had to basically bully him to do knockabouts because he, I guess, at the time he was just happy being a bit player, behind the scenes guy. You know, you guys can take all the fame shit, and I guess Samuel was like motherfucker, no, like do you know who you are? Like, bro, like I got my boy Lung Karyan in the cut. You know, uh we got was it Lauga Young?
I got Wing.
Wing, that's right. Yeah, we got him with a peace pipe.
That's right.
Mantis style or snake. Like,
style,
bro, you're going to star in this movie. So
and
you know,
it's crazy, isn't it? If it wasn't for Sammo Hung doing that, we
knows
would have
the
lost out.
trajectory?
Exactly. We could have lost out on so many. Yumbiaro is just the dude has so many classics under his belt. It's unbelievable.
Yeah, I actually just you know, one of those movies that I'd always heard great things about and just never saw, like throughout my 20 years or however long it's been of fandom, was Iceman Cometh, and I finally picked it up. I grabbed the Vinegar Syndrome release, 3 or 4 months ago or whatever, and even though the movie is like a little light on action, man, that shit was so much fun.
It's
Like,
a great film.
I couldn't believe how much fun I had watching a movie that really only had like 2 or 3 fights in it, and only one of them being like a real fight. You know?
Absolutely. I think that film is underrated as being just a fish out of water comedy. It's a good time.
Yeah, dude, and I think Yunhua sort of jumped in my ranks of like most despicable villains of all time. I mean, he's not. I don't know if he's quite Fang Hakon, but he's he made his case in that movie. Like, bro, I wanted to throw that man in the fade myself. Like,
Yunhua, I mean, I give a lot of respect for Yunhua because even though he didn't have many starring roles as the good guy, and I think he really could have pulled it off. He has a few TV series where he's the good guy, and he pulls off. I mean, obviously Kung Fu Hustle as well, but he pulls off being a good guy, great. But his villainy, for some bizarre reason, he is just chef's kiss when it comes to villainy.
Man, he's like a kung fu version of like MJF. Like I know that he can do like some good guy shit because he's just inherently talented.
Yeah,
but he's just in his bag when he's being a piece of shit. Like
he's just MJF is actually a good analogy for him. Yeah, but I'm no spoilers for Full Gear. I'm watching that after we've done with this. I'm gonna go and watch Full Gear. I haven't watched it yet.
I'm interested to hear your thoughts. I won't spoil it. I thought it was a good show. I mean, all AEW pay-per-views are at a baseline pretty good.
Yeah.
But I'm especially interested to hear what you think of the main event once you get to it.
Okay, that's also funny enough. This actually brings up an interesting question, and it's not a question that I can ask a lot of people because I don't speak to a lot of wrestling fans. But do you think there's some enjoyment of wrestling that comes from being a kung fu cinema fan to an extent? You think so?
1,000%.
I do too. I do
1,000%.
too. Yeah.
The parallels between, you know, a good wrestling show and a good kung fu movie
Right.
are, you know, the the Venn diagram of it is just a single circle.
Yes.
Because I mean, and it's like, and you can, and I mean, you can apply like some of the same wrestling philosophies and ideology to a good martial arts movie, and it's all the same. Like,
Yeah.
okay, like we were just talking about, you know, Warriors 2. You know, you got Casanova Wong and Sammo Hung, your
Yeah.
baby faces, and you got Fong
Yes.
Hakon and Lee Hoi San as your heels, and you know, someone has to get put over, and Casanova Wong gets the shit beat out of him, but he gets
Yeah.
his win back later. And there's hope spots where it's looking like he needs to get that tag, and then Samuel pokes him with a you know, and obviously it's not exactly the same, but at the end of the day, you know, action be damned. I mean, it's storytelling between good and
Yes.
evil.
Yes, absolutely. I think obviously there's I don't know what we want to call it. I guess a stigma. I guess there's a stigma with liking pro wrestling because some people just think there's this ridiculous mentality that it's one thing when it's not. It's this. I don't know what they want to call it, whether it's
Well,
immature or whatever. But if more action fans just gave wrestling a little bit of a chance, I think it's easy to really enjoy.
well, it's, I don't know. It's kind of this weird idea of, man, like wrestling is so silly. I mean, these guys they're clearly not actually fighting each other. It's so fake. But it's like, well, the movie you just watched
Yeah.
didn't actually happen either. Or wait, did you really just watch, I don't know, let's say The Killer or Hard Boiled, and you know, the fact that Chow Yun Fat just shot like 85 bullets without reloading the clip, and
Absolutely.
that wasn't a suspension of your disbelief. Like, in the
Right.
scope of the movie, it didn't bother you at all. You were still immersed in it, and you still loved it.
Yeah.
So, you know, yes, wrestling looks nothing like a real fight, but martial arts movies look nothing like a real fight. A
Yeah.
real fight will last 7 seconds at the most.
Right,
You
right.
know,
Exactly,
you know.
exactly.
So, and you can apply that to any type of action genre or
Yeah,
reality TV or anything. So, I feel like the argument that people make against against wrestling are in bad faith, and it's like, look, if you don't like it, okay, that's fine. You don't like it, but you know, when people sort of consider it like a lower form of entertainment, I feel like they're being very disingenuous.
I agree. I agree. And funny enough, I think it kind of works both ways as well. I mean, if I was going to take my wife, for example, she watches pro wrestling with me. She loves AEW. We watch it all the time. But then sometimes she'll watch a kung fu film and she is willing to have a suspension of belief more when it comes to wrestling than she is for
Right.
kung fu films. So it can work both ways. But I think
No,
that
I agree.
crossover is there. It's definitely
And
there.
right, and sometimes, you know, and pro wrestling is a variety show at the end of the day.
Yep.
So you get the lucha guys who are doing like all the like 800 backflips and not selling, per
Yeah.
se, and then you've got your guys like Toriano or uh, you know, like these primarily comedy guys, and
Yep.
you got your serious guys who, you know, your Kenny Omega. Well, I don't know if I call him serious per se, but when he wants to be serious, he can be
Yeah,
really
100%.
serious.
Hmm.
And I mean, I was live in Toronto and I saw him and Will Ospreay
Nice.
have that match, and that was the craziest match I've ever seen, like in real life.
Yeah.
And you know, and the 14,000 people there were fully invested, and they bought on the 2.5 counts and so forth. And you know, ultimately, wrestling, film, TV. I mean, they're really just trying to make you feel something. And
Exactly.
some things will hit, some things won't. Like we were
I-
just talking about, some there's some amazing kung fu movies that you and I both love that, if not for the grading comedy, would be 10 out of 10. But it's like
yeah.
I have to just put it at 7 because it's such a chore to get through. Um, and I mean, Cantonese comedy is like a different animal
Yeah,
altogether.
something
And
different.
I it might have been you or someone else I was having a conversation with, maybe GQ, about the Lucky Star films,
Hmm.
and the action, the fights, like Samo was in his bag and everything
Oh,
was so crazy. But for me personally, it's like I found all of those movies such a chore to get through because
interesting.
everything outside of the action was just like, I can tolerate comedy, but it was just so over the top, and
I get it. I get it. I think the Lucky Stars films are actually a very, very interesting example of Asian cinema, Hong Kong cinema, because, in my opinion, from speaking to martial arts cinema fans, kung fu cinema fans, they absolutely divide people. Because
it's a polarizing series for
yeah,
sure.
I can watch them. In fact, I love Winners and Sinners, but I can watch them and be absolutely okay. I know more than like a handful of people that absolutely despise them, apart from the fight scenes. So interesting.
It's Now, mind you, I saw My Lucky Stars and I want to say Twinkle Twinkle Lucky Stars,
Hmm.
and then Winners and Sinners. I've only seen some clips of. And when I first saw them, and this would have been like 10 years ago, I
Yeah.
just remember, like, yeah, enamored by the action, everything else. It wasn't so much that I hated it. It was just like, oh, there's just so much of it. Like,
Yeah.
there's just not enough balance. Now, um, it's possible because it's been so long. Because I feel like I've grown up and I've
Hmm.
changed or evolved some of my tastes, and what I despised in 2010. Hey, maybe I'll like it better now.
Yeah.
So I can't go so far as to say they're bad movies per se, but yeah, the comedy was a real turnoff. And it's like, and it's not like I have this thing against comedy. I mean, Drunken Master is like one of my top 5 favorite movies.
Yeah.
I mean, Jackie has made a career out of comedy,
Of course. Yeah.
and I generally love all of them, but something about that one just didn't hit for me. And I
I
know
get
that
it.
the cast is full of like big deal, like
Yeah.
Hong Kong comedians, so I'm sure I'm sure if you're local to the area, or at least understand
Yeah.
Cantonese comedy, that maybe they love it, but it was a little too much for me. Um,
Understandable. Understandable.
but
Which is, sorry, go ahead.
I was just going to ask, the so where do you generally land on the subject of comedy, especially in like old school movies? Because I know that after Jackie Chan blew up after Snakes and Drunken Master, it it felt like everyone and their moms were trying to like recreate that formula to
Yeah.
varying degrees of success.
Yeah, it's a very interesting and oftentimes like touchy subject, I think, for some people who are a fan of the genre, because no one really wants to properly admit when there are good films with terrible comedy. And I think for me, I can definitely stomach Canto comedy for the most part, I think. But I think I'll give a perfect example, right? Odd Couple, absolutely phenomenal film.
Mhm.
Dean Sheck as Rocking Horse in that film is so incredibly frustrating and awful that when it goes to that extent, when it like pushes it to beyond goofy, beyond silly, I find it like almost. I almost experience. Well, it's not even almost. I experience secondhand embarrassment because I'm just like, oh no, I hate this. Why are they doing this? But if it's just casual comedy, like for example, The Magnificent Butcher has some solid comedy in it, and I enjoy it. In fact, Magnificent Butcher, if someone was going to ask me today on this day, it could change tomorrow, I would say The Magnificent Butcher is my favorite kung fu film.
I definitely would not disagree and argue. I think it's funny because your page came up on my feed on the For You page, and awesome instant follow, and like, oh snap, you do a podcast about it, and like, why didn't I never think to like look this up before? Like, this would be fire to just like do my commute to work or whatever, and and hear y'all rap about specific films. And I remember listening to the Magnificent Butcher episode, and I feel like there was uniform agreement with you and Devin and Cyrus about not just that film, but that Yunbu fight with I think it was Lam Ching Ying.
Absolutely, my favorite fight scene.
The movie.
My favorite fight scene of all time, beyond anything. That's my favorite fight scene.
See, like I said, that was like my first DVD purchase, and the beautiful thing with DVDs is that at least I had that ability to play things in slow mo, and so I used to just rewatch that fight, and I'd hit it in slow motion, and just watching the movement, especially from Yun Bu, because like one of the subtle things in that fight that makes it so amazing is like, I mean, his moves are so crisp, but anytime he's not like throwing a punch or blocking or something, he's always in his horse fist stance.
Yep.
And it's just like the little things, and just the and especially when bro pulls out the knives out of his elbows, and it's as close to choreographed art I've ever seen. And
it's poetry.
It's poetry, and I don't know. I would have loved to have been a fly on the wall when they're putting it together. So I don't know if they literally just divvied up some of the fights, like, all right, Wu Ping, you and your team figure out something for this fight. Samo, you do this, or I don't know if they worked together in conjunction. Because it's like, for instance, when you watch Drunken Master 2, it's fun to kind of watch that, and I mean, knowing that Lau Garlong definitely choreographed these early fights, and that end fight was definitely all Jackie, and you can kind of just tell from their respective styles. So it's it would be fun just to see how exactly they worked on it. And I agree. I don't think and they I think that's the only film that they ever sort of shared that credit on.
Yeah, those two in particular. Yeah, I think that's fascinating. I believe from what I've heard, Lau Kar Leung's baby on that film was the train fight, the under the train fight. I think Lau Kar Leung was just like, okay, this is how it's going to go. Jackie said, I think it should go this way, and Pops was like, nope, it's my fight. This is the way it goes.
Yeah, and I heard they butted heads over the use of wires too.
Oh, really?
I heard. So take that with a grain of salt, but I heard that was like a big point of contention, because I mean, Lau, he's all about like his realism in his kung fu, relatively speaking, and I mean, even the Jackie parts, I don't think he overdid the wire work. I mean,
no, not at all.
It wasn't Crouching Tiger or Iron Monkey or anything like that. It was really just like accentuating a couple moves here and there. And I know there was a belief, or a train of thought, at least among the community, as far as people really, really hate wires, and I get it, especially there was a span in the late '90s, early 2000s in Hong Kong where it was like, okay, we're leaving the actual martial artists and Peking opera students at home. Let's bring in these Chinese pop stars, strap them to wires, and that'll distract from the fact that like they don't actually know how to fight on screen. So when guys like Donnie or people who actually know how to fight use wires, it's never, or it's rarely in a fantasy type of environment where in that universe it makes sense to fly around.
Absolutely, I'm all for it. I'm all for wires. I respect Lau Kar Leung for not using them often, but like when Jackie uses them, I fully respect his use. He uses them correctly. If anyone sorry, go ahead.
And Jackie is a guy in particular. I mean, his whole reputation was centered around him, doing. I mean, I know that when he first broke through in the States, and the big thing they always said was, "Oh, Jackie does all of his own stunts." And it's like, well, maybe in Hollywood at that time.
Ching Kar Lok says otherwise.
And it's like, especially in those movies, and I think it's especially when you see, exactly what Jackie is capable of in terms of athletics and so forth. So I guess folks sort of deceive themselves into thinking that he's going to do every single stunt, even though he'll, at least for a time, he would do the majority of them. But no shame in it.
No.
But it's like even Jet Li is one of my favorite screen fighters of all time. But anything you've seen him do after, like, I think he fucked up his back on something in like the late '80s, early '90s, and from that point on, if you didn't see his face, there's a very good chance that that he had a double, and there's nothing wrong with that.
No, I think doubles are essentially underrated. I think they're an important part of Hong Kong cinema or martial arts cinema, because sometimes to make something look good, you have to bring in someone else to do it, and that's just the way things are.
Bro, they had Meng Hoi and Yin Bu doubling for Cynthia Rothrock in some very obvious scenes and like righting wrongs.
They didn't even put a wig on Yun Biao. They were just like, just go for it. Just all we need you is to wear a pantsuit like Cynthia Rothrock. No wigs. No, we're not going to mask your face. It's just going to be Yun Biao in a dress.
And it's like, especially early on, I'd watch things, or at least the first time I'd watch a movie, it's like I'm not really looking to check for doubling or anything like that. But I mean, I remember that movie in particular, and it was like the first fight with her in the movie, and it's like y'all really couldn't have done a second take, for real?
Yeah,
it's distracting.
Yeah, it's nuts in that film. I mean, Corey Yuen basically did not give a fuck.
Oh no,
it's just like, we're gonna throw anyone in, and it's gonna look terrible. But I don't know. It's a shame though, because Cynthia, like, not masking her double that badly, I think that says something, because Cynthia Rothrock is incredible. I just watched Magic Crystal, and
that's right,
absolutely incredible in that film, and I think.
It's funny that's probably a definitive movie in the action versus comedy the discussion in and of itself.
Absolutely, and you know what? It's not that bad. The comedy,
I agree,
especially since it's Wang Jing, but it's not that bad. It's and the action.
See, Wang Jing, at least from the grip of movies I've seen of his, he's not my favorite director. I'll say that. Like Last Hero in China. Ugh.
Oh, I love that film. I love that.
The action is amazing, and Jet does a pretty entertaining drunken boxing at the end. Shout out to Wu Ping, but just the premise of that movie, and just so much of the nonsense in it, and it's like, and again, for me, it's all like, suspending disbelief and and feeling the, that the world, like you can fly and you can do all this weird shit if
Yeah.
the universe around it sort of constitutes it or calls for it.
Mhm.
And far too often in some of his movies it's just like, I don't know, he's got the sense to hire incredible like fight choreographers and talent, but he can't help himself. He's got to do some dumb shit in there.
I agree. He's
Where it's like I walk away feeling like, okay, like Magic Crystal is dope. Last Hero in China is dope. The the Lone Wolf and Cub ripoff that he did with Jet Li, I forget what that's called.
We need a remastered version. New Legend of Shaolin.
That's what it is.
We need a new version of that. We need a remastered
Yeah,
version.
that movie's only had like one release for time.
Yeah,
and
I
and
can't
it's a
even
shitty
find it.
one.
Yeah, I can't find it subtitled anywhere. It's just that horrendous dub.
Yeah, I've never seen it.
No, it's that Legend of the Red Dragon.
Oh yeah.
That's what it's
too.
released as,
Yeah.
Legend of the Red Dragon. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Crazy, but it's like But as far as Magic Crystal, yeah, like I get it's an ET ripoff, but
Oh yeah.
the action is just so good in that movie, and the I wouldn't even say the comedy is bad necessarily. It's just such a weird movie.
Truly bizarre. It's a
bizarre movie for sure. But
yeah, and I don't know what they said to Richard Norton in that film. I don't know if they just went, Richard, here's a huge pile of cocaine because you're going to go fucking crazy in this film. His fighting in that film, Richard Norton has never looked better. Never looked better in that film. And he's looked great in a lot of films.
Yeah, I've admittedly I haven't seen too many things that he's in apart from that, and I know he's in Millionaire Express, which actually I got the Arrow Blu-ray for a few months back, and that was actually legitimately the first time I'd ever seen it.
Oh, it's a good film.
It is
high on comedy.
But again, even the comedy didn't bother me so much as, I don't know, the fights are crazy, but most of them were very, very short.
I agree.
I think my disappointment was more because like I've seen clips of the movie and some of the fights look bonkers, and and I guess I was disappointed when I saw it, and I realized like, oh, all these clips I've seen are literally 75% of all of the action in the movie, and
yes,
I was hoping that there was going to be some crazy 10-minute fight scene that to end it off, but I mean it is a fun movie. I like the comedy. I just wanted more of I just wanted more of the action.
I agree, and the fact that in that film you have so many legends fighting each other, and the fight scenes aren't long. I mean, Dick Wei Yun Biao. Oh, come on now, that's incredible.
That was the main event, but
yeah, absolutely.
I mean, but then you can imagine my disappointment when I see the homegirl Yukari Oshima, and she does almost nothing in the movie. I mean, she has a quick 25-second fight, and then that's it.
Yeah,
and
it's
and I don't know, maybe the maybe they're trying to be budget minded, and they got everybody and got them on the cheap because they're mostly cameos and only
exactly
for one day.
Exactly. That's what I think it was. I think Sammo was just like, let's see how many faces I can cram into this film. And they don't have to do much. I mean, Huang Zhang-Li's in there and he does basically nothing.
Nothing.
Yeah, it's crazy. And you have oh my god, I can't remember his name. Yasuaki Karata against Richard Norton at the end. It's a great little fight.
And it's a great fight, but it was over before it began.
Exactly. I like that Richard Norton does this painful. Gotta love that little nod to, is that Twinkle Twinkle that he does that with Sammo?
Is Twinkle Twinkle, is that the one where he fights Sammo who's using the tennis rackets?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah. All right. Yeah, because I liked him. Yeah, he's great in that scene too. But yeah, those are basically the only 3 scenes that I've seen him in.
Absolutely, you're absolutely right. I think he's in very, very little. I mean, he's in films like China O'Brien with Cynthia Rothrock and like Rage and Honor with Cynthia Rothrock, but I don't know why. Oh, he's in City Hunter. He's the bad guy in City Hunter as well, of course.
Admittedly, okay. Again, going back to the comedy versus the action.
Yes.
I mean, can we both agree that
we're not going to
movie...
agree? We're not going to agree on this one. I promise you.
Fan?
I love City Hunter. I love it.
Now, admittedly, I mean, I can't argue with it because I've never watched the movie in full, front to back.
Yeah.
I remember just watching some of it and seeing that Street Fighter scene and just rolling my eyes. And I think maybe knowing that in real life, like Jackie fucking hates that movie with all of his being, kind of makes me not want to see it.
Yeah. So for me, the reason why I like City Hunter is because it's not. Well, it is Cantonese comedy, but in my opinion, it goes fully into spoof. It's fully into spoof territory. And I like spoof films. I'm a big fan of, your scary movies, Naked Guns, Loaded Weapons, Hot Shots, all that stuff. Love them. But I think it goes enough into full spoof territory for me to go, I'm fully on board. This is dumb. Right. This is stupid, but it's meant to be. In fact, the Street Fighter scene is one of the worst ones in the film, in my opinion. Right. And I think City Hunter has some genuinely good laughs in it, some solid ones. But I will also admit there are some bits that are just like, oh no, this is cringeworthy.
Well, it's like I've got that movie. Hell, I feel like I have like 3 different versions of it through various box sets over the years. And I've just never sat down and just given it a full watch. And it's like, and a couple of the scenes that I've seen or the clips, it's like, well, the action definitely doesn't look like an issue.
Actually, solid.
But yeah, it always just comes down to that Street Fighter scene where it's just like, I don't want to like waste my time or insult my own intelligence. But I also feel like that philosophy is probably robbed me of some good viewing experiences, and there's movies that I should have seen a long time ago that I didn't because of a preconceived notion. So
yeah, I understand that.
So I should be fair to it.
Give it a go. See what if you hate it, you hate it. A lot of people do, but it's definitely. We were speaking about films that divide audiences. I think City Hunter's definitely one of them. Funny enough, speaking of comedy, I've been recently. So there's been a few of these Stephen Chow releases that are coming out. I've been picking them up and watching them, and quite frankly, I'll be honest with you, I've been giving them away right after because I am not a Stephen Chow fan at all. I've just bought the Royal Tramp 2-film set from Eureka, I think that was, and I'm looking forward to watching those. I've heard very, very good things, but Fight Back to School and From Beijing with Love was okay. It was okay. Fight Back to School, I watched the first one and I am done. I am absolutely done. That film, I'm going to go on record right now. Fight Back to School is fucking terrible. It's a terrible film. Oh, it's awful. It's awful.
Because, I mean, I didn't really know much about Stephen Chow until Kung Fu Hustle, and, this is probably a controversial opinion, but again, I haven't rewatched it in a very, very, very long time, but I thought that movie was overrated as hell.
I will agree with you 100% on that.
It's, I mean, I know it won awards, and at the time, like, everyone was talking about it, like it's this sort of return to form, and I thought the action was very, and Yuen Woo-ping was my guy, and apparently it was Sammo on board, and who left or got fired or something, and then Yuen Woo-ping stepped in, but for his standards, I mean, I thought that shit was mediocre as hell, and like, it's not a bad movie. I'm not saying that. It's just
no, not at all.
I just don't get the hype. I never got it.
Me either. I watched it for the podcast. I think it was like episode 3 of the podcast or something like that. And I just, it's fine, and it just doesn't do much for me. I'm actually looking forward to revisiting Shaolin Soccer because I think I'll prefer that one.
Well, I haven't seen it in a while, but once you sort of remember that it's not a kung fu movie per se,
Yes.
but it's sort of, Shaolin is kind of just used to tell the story about obviously soccer. But I thought I loved it. I thought it was a whole lot of fun.
It needs a
Um,
remaster.
yeah, I got there's some Yun Bio movie I feel like that came out in the 80s, which was sort of the same idea, not Shaolin, but it was basically
Champions?
like a yeah. Have you seen it?
I saw it like during the VHS years. I haven't seen it in 20 years.
Did you like it at the time? Or?
I remember. See, it's difficult, right? Because with Champions, it came out, or I was watching it at a time where I was heavy into kung fu, kung fu, kung fu.
Right,
Champions is definitely more of a sports movie.
Yep.
So upon watching it, I was like, "This isn't what I wanted. This is bullshit. Where's the kung fu?" So I
Right.
don't think I respected it in a way that I would probably respect it now.
I feel the same about I remember I saw Mismatched Couples a super long time ago, and then when you see Donnie Yen, Yun Wu Ping, and there might have been one semi fight in the entire movie, and it's really just like a breakdancing thing, and so I kind of just instinctively hate on it.
Yeah.
But it's weird that some of those old Donnie movies haven't gotten the re-release treatment.
Bizarre.
And
Yeah.
it's weird because I suddenly got the urge to watch Drunken Tai Chi the other day, and and I've got like a bunch of boxes around the crib, and my old DVD is somewhere in the bottom of one of them, and I just can't be bothered to look for it, and so I'm like, well, I probably should replace it anyway, and there's no Blu-ray for it.
No.
It's not even on the Wu Tang collection on YouTube, and I'm like, why is this
Yeah.
film suddenly so hard to find? What the fuck is going on?
Strange. I'm expecting it to get some kind of re-release, but I guess people looking at Donnie Yen films now, they're definitely looking more towards his 80s stuff. I imagine we'll see oh fucking hell, what's the name? Oh, I imagine we'll see a re-release or a remaster release of Legend of the Wolf at some point, but I think people definitely focus more on his 90s stuff than his early 80s stuff.
Legend of the Wolf.
Under
Where do you
Cranking
stand on
Heaven.
that? Because that might be like the poster child of polarization
Yes.
In kung fu cinema. I've never seen a more love it or hate it thing in my life.
Absolutely. And the strange thing is, I am the perfect example of that polarization because back in the day when I had it on VHS, I absolutely detested it because, it was crazy. It was undercranking. It was just too much. And then I haven't watched the entire film since, but watching like clips on YouTube, I'm kind of like, I'm slightly more forgiving these days. It's different. It's experimental. It doesn't quite work, but I don't hate it.
Yeah, I mean, I wasn't a fan the first time I saw it. Like 15 years ago or whenever it was.
Yeah.
But kind of like Warriors 2 and some of those other movies, like sometimes just like the right quality release can sort of make what you thought was a bad film suddenly good. Sometimes it can make a good film you thought of suddenly not so good. So like I'm waiting for like a proper version to come out because I've only ever seen it in full screen form.
Yeah,
and
me too.
and I realized a very long time ago that if I watch a movie and I mean hell, like I loved The Mystery of Chess Boxing, one of my favorite movies, and for years I had to deal with that bullshit Taiseng DVD in full screen. And although shout out to Bobby Samuels on the commentary,
Nice.
But the like that link that you put me on, Kung Fu Robber, like
Yep.
that remaster that I got from her, um, which they cleaned up the picture. Um, I mean, I had long known that a widescreen version existed,
Yep.
and I finally saw it the way that it should, and that movie went from like a 9 out of 10 for me to a 10.
Yep.
You know,
It's
and
incredible.
and yeah, just being able to see so much more, and I mean, some full screen ones are okay, but just shapes in particular, like it's designed to take advantage of that wide lens. So
Absolutely, and I will say so. So you mentioned earlier the Kung Fu Cinema website, right, from back in the day. Kung
yep,
Fu Cinema still exists. A lot of people don't know that. It
I
is
think
now.
it's just a forum now.
It is just a forum,
Yep.
yes. And they also, the guy who used to run Kung Fu Cinema now runs 36 Styles, the clothing line.
Really?
That,
Well,
yep, same guy. Oh, there you go. I've actually got that T-shirt. Yeah.
crazy.
There
Yeah.
you go. Yeah. And yeah, he runs that now, and he runs the forum. And there are people on that forum that are doing fan edits or fan versions of films.
Mhm.
And I can tell you, I am on that forum. I don't know if I should widely publicize this, but I'll say it anyway. I just obtained a widescreen cleaned up copy of Daggers 8,
Oh, crazy.
and it's unbelievable. I've only seen that in full screen, and I was just like, "Oh shit, this is it." If more people can start putting things out like this, it's incredible.
Yeah, I got from the Kung Fu Robber. I got the Mystery of Chess Boxing.
Hmm.
I got the Ninja in the Dragon's Den,
Yes.
which I mean, the night scenes are still a little tough, but definitely much cleaner than the old versions that I saw.
Yeah.
I got the Hot, the Cool, and the Vicious. That was the first
Nice.
time I'd ever seen that in widescreen. And that's
Yep.
one of those movies that always just had this killer reputation of like yo, like, this is a classic. And I never saw it for time.
Yep.
And part of it was, it's like, yo, this movie's got this reputation. It looks cool. I like Tan Tao Lang, but it's like I feel like if I watch this movie in the version that's available at the time,
Yeah.
I'm gonna come away from it thinking, no, this shit's overrated.
Right.
Like I scoured, like, yo, I need a widescreen and ideally a cleaned up version of it. And then I also got Rebellious Reign,
I picked up that too.
which I'd only ever seen in full screen, and yeah, and it's rumored that that was supposed to be a Bruce Lee movie.
Yep, that's right.
I have a hard time seeing him in
It
that
would have
role.
been it would have been totally different. I'm sure it would have
So
been
different,
absolutely different. By the way, the opening fight scene in Rebellious Reign,
incredible.
Jesus, unbelievable.
They set the tone, like
Yeah.
right off the bat. Like, they're not fucking around. Like,
Nope.
yo,
That fight
like
scene's
like
incredible.
yeah. And I think it's the same fight choreographer. His name escapes me at the moment, but he did a lot of fire shit in a bunch of Taiwanese movies.
Mm.
Like, I think he did the fight choreography for The Loot, which
Oh,
I've been
nice.
vocal. What, I could be wrong, like, don't quote me,
Mhm.
but I'm pretty sure he was involved in that. And uh, forgetting whatever else he's
I
in.
assume he did the Challenger as well, right? That's the same choreographer as the
Yeah,
Loot, isn't it? Yeah.
for sure. And yeah, in that movie, no comedy whatsoever. It's a political thriller,
Yes. Yep.
so to speak, which I thought was, I think the first time I saw it, I thought it was a little dull, but they just sprinkled so much action into it, and I appreciated more the second go around, and I actually kind of like a lot that it's one of those few kung fu movies I've seen where, like, there isn't a happy ending.
Nope.
Like, bro hustles, gets on top, and then just that downfall comes, and he just never gets his. Then the bad guy gets away with it. I mean, this felt like a
Yeah.
Chang movie almost. Like,
I think I keep forgetting, but Rebellious Reign would actually be an ideal movie for us to do a podcast episode on, because I'm always looking for old school kung fu films that don't have, and this is my wife's term, shenanigans. That doesn't have shenanigans in them. And yeah, she kind of isn't down with the Kanto comedy stuff. So Rebellious Reign might be a hell of a good option for us to do.
I genuinely get a kick, when because like I subscribe onto the Food for Thought Patreon, and
We
you'll
appreciate that.
preview.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, for sure. And you'll preview like upcoming episodes, and it's kind of like a fun, almost a game of like, ooh, okay, they're watching this movie, so all right. I mean, I know you're gonna like it because you're deep into the fandom, but it's like, all right, is like I remember this movie having some comedy, so these shenanigans might piss the wifey off.
Every time.
But every so often, something I'm expecting her to hate, she loves, and then some
Yeah.
things I'm expecting her to love, she hates, and I'm just I can't
She's
figure it out.
she's very difficult to work out, which I kind of appreciate in a way, because she's not like stereotypical. She just goes with the flow and likes what she likes and doesn't like what she doesn't like. So we've got this upcoming week, we've got Executioners from Shaolin. We're doing an episode on that.
Ooh.
So that will be a very interesting one, I think.
I have a feeling she'll enjoy it.
Yeah, not too much comedy in that.
There's not much at all. I mean, there's a few goofy things, but
Yeah.
but not what I'd call like your typical Cantonese comedy or shenanigans, I should say.
That's right.
And,
That's right.
And the fact that it's it's the first Time A movie. So I'm assuming she's seen Kill Bill 2. So everyone who knows that character, I mean, it could be a cool double whammy to do Executioners and lead that into the Clans of the White Lotus.
We actually did Clans of the White Lotus.
You did? Right.
Yeah,
Right.
A number of episodes back early on, and she actually enjoyed that. She liked that quite a bit. But it'll be nice to see whether she preferred that or Executioners. So it'll be
Well,
interesting.
I feel like Clans is more of a, I guess, more of a standard or a typical kung fu movie in terms of the bad guy comes in, fucks shit up. Bro spends 2/3 of the movie just trying to train to get to the point of beating him. Whereas at least Executioners kind of has like the cool little almost love angle with Chen Quan Tai and I want to say Lily Lee. And like he wants his revenge, but he's a family man. I think that element was fun, and their little like their kung fu honeymoon on the boat was super hilarious to me.
I'm looking forward to that scene. That will be an interesting one to discuss. Yeah, I'm really looking forward to it.
It's like, Fab, you're not breaking my horse dance. It's not going to happen. It's not going to happen.
So good. Lau Kar Leung was on his shit back then. He was crazy. I'll be interested also to see how my co-hosts react to. So it's 77, so it's slightly slower than the 79 80 stuff. So we'll see.
So I found personally that Lau Kar Leung's work, okay, like once you get to sort of the Shapes area of the late 70s, early 80s, him, Sammo, Wu Ping, and there's a grip of other guys. I mean, they're really in their bag and doing some mind blowing stuff. But as far as the Basher era of like the early 70s, I thought the Sammo stuff was really, really strong.
Yep.
And the Lau Kar Leung stuff was really ahead of its time. I mean, I got the Shaw Scope Volume 1, and so I'd watched Shaolin Temple for the first time. I'd seen 5 Shaolin Masters before, and there was one more in that series that I'm forgetting. but the fight choreography
Yeah.
definitely felt way beyond what was coming out at that time.
I couldn't agree more. Shaolin Temple is probably in my top 3 Shaw Brothers films. I love that film. I love it.
It's a great movie, and
Great cast.
great cast. I mean, the plots. I mean, before you watch it, you kind of already knew what to expect,
Yeah.
but they just nailed every aspect of it, and
Yeah.
so I just thought of this now. A little bit of a controversial opinion, dare I say, but see, I was always more of a Golden Harvest guy,
Okay.
as opposed to Shaw Brothers.
Mhm.
Now I know Shaw Brothers had like the budget and could do some more grandiose things, but the thing that sort of took me out of a lot of Shaw movies, I mean, I still like them, but just maybe not as much as I should.
Yeah.
But so they obviously had their studio and they would design their sets and so forth, and it was really ambitious and so forth, but they always looked like sets to me,
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah.
And I always kind of dug that Golden Harvest and a lot of the independent studios who obviously didn't have the budget to do it, but they would actually just shoot somewhere outdoors,
Yes.
and
Yes. Mhm.
and therefore it felt more real. Now you have those independent movies, especially the Taiwanese ones, where you know they'll just shoot on like some dry, empty cliff
Yep.
somewhere,
Yep.
and it just just visually it just looked like. Well, I mean, clearly this was the best they could do, given the resources. But Golden Harvest sort of fell in the middle, where they had
Yeah.
great indoor sets when needed to, but then when they actually went outdoors to shoot things, like it usually looked great.
Yeah, I agree. I often love the outside stuff. Shaw Brothers is just interesting. It has its own yeah, the sets kind of have their own appeal to them in a
Yep,
way.
they do, 100%.
But yeah,
The indoor Shaw Brothers sets are awesome. Like they
yes,
always look great. It's just whenever, and sometimes some of the movies, like I just bought Kid with the Golden Arm the other day,
nice,
and
nice.
and there's one scene where they're escorting the gold through like seemingly somewhere on the outskirts of Hong Kong and on like an actual hill, and then they'd walk to like the end of the frame, and then the next frame, it's clearly a set, and it was always just so jarring. Like, okay, like you
Yeah,
had me immersed, and then you took me out, and then you put me back in it. So
you don't often see the Venoms mob outside. Actually,
very
outside.
rarely,
Yeah, it's all indoors. All the Venoms films for
bro.
some
Like
reason.
Chang Che and Run Mi Shaw. They had them fools working like slaves. Like
Nuts.
the output during that time frame, and it was just insane. I mean,
No
like you think
drop.
of you think of Hollywood now, and you know whatever actor will, like,
Right.
for an action movie, will do that one action movie, and then you don't see them again until next year or the year
Yep.
after. I mean, like, and the thing I liked about the Kung Fu Cinema site, I mean, they had the discographies like listed, and it was like between like 77 and like 80 or 81. It's like they must have done like 30 films or something ridiculous.
Nuts. And very little drop in quality.
Mhm.
Like the Venom Mob films are consistently, if not great, then good, in my opinion. There's a
They
few are not great.
there's a few okay ones, but by and large, yeah, and you could just tell the five, well, I guess mostly four of them.
Hmm.
I mean, I know Wei Pei was kind of one of them, but not really.
He doesn't count.
Um, he doesn't. He really, I mean, he appeared in some of my favorite ones, but he was
Yeah.
literally just around for a couple. But you could tell they all just had that natural chemistry,
Yeah.
and their choreography meetings probably only lasted a couple of hours,
Yeah.
and because they, more so than anybody else, I mean, they would do these 25-second long takes, and they would nail it. Sometimes, the Venomobs movies felt a little too opera or a little too choreographed at times.
Oh God, I agree. The perfect example is the ending of Masked Avengers when they're throwing the tridents up in the air. I hate that. I hate it.
Yeah, it's tough, and and watching Kid with the Golden Arms, and there's a fight between Lu Feng and Chang Cheng,
Mhm.
and I mean, and they're going like 100 miles an hour, and they're doing these super long 25-second takes, and the camera is barely moving or anything.
Yeah.
They're just letting them just cook
Yep.
continuously, but like Lu Feng is swinging around the pole, and you can tell he's not really following through, but how could he? You
Yeah.
know, and so, and I don't know this for certain, but it felt to me like, okay, they probably they're probably on some time constraints. So the important thing, we need 3.5 minutes of fighting before we can move on to the next scene. Like,
Right.
guys, just let's. We don't need to do any camera tricks or anything super impactful.
Right.
Just cook. We'll zoom in and do some shit for the death shot, and then on to the next. You didn't really
Yeah.
feel like that when you're watching Lao Ga Lung or Sammo
No.
or even
Far more dynamic.
Tang Jia. Yeah, and he
Yeah.
was an underrated guy for Shaw Brothers too. Just never got the attention.
No, I agree. There are a few people that just didn't get the respect that maybe they deserve. Whether Shaw Brothers or Golden Harvest or independent, I absolutely sing the praises of Jack Long and Lee Yi Min, and I know they're respected amongst the community, but they didn't do enough films. They weren't just those two, and Mark Long as well. Unbelievable.
I need that. And speaking of them, the re-release, that I need a widescreen version of Born Invincible. I'm convinced it exists. I need it, because
I
that movie.
I think that
It
and Shaolin versus Llama are people like we're clamoring to get those.
Yeah, at least I've seen a widescreen of Shaolin versus Llama, but I'd love to hear a subtitled version.
Yeah.
I'd love to see one cleaned up and so forth. And I remember being on the forums and talking to, because the forums, the Kung Fu Cinema forums. I mean, they used to have some people there who actually worked for some of these companies,
Mhm.
like Media Blasters or Taisang or
Yeah,
so
yeah.
forth.
Mhm.
And one of them had mentioned, when I asked on a forum post once, that the challenge with releasing so many of these movies is that, especially the independent ones, that locating the rights is a
Yep.
nightmare.
Yep. It's
and
impossible.
and these guys just, I guess, didn't have the foresight in 1977 or whenever to preserve the movie. And
Yep.
so, you know once they get shipped off for their VHS release, and they lose the reels, and they lose the masters. And like, one of my all-time favorite movies is Yunwo Ping Joint, Legend of a Fighter, with Lung Kar-yan.
Nice.
Basically, it was Fearless before Fearless.
Yep.
um, and and I remember on the Hong Kong Legends DVD, there's one of the extra features is, I guess, a trailer of the movie. And in that trailer, there's a scene where he fights a guy with a sword, versus a fencer,
Yep.
and that scene never appeared in the movie. But when you queue up that feature, there's a disclaimer where it's like, yeah, the this trailer is the only known version
Crazy.
of like showing its existence. Seasonal films lost the masters or
Yeah.
whatever, so there might be a negative somewhere, in someone's cupboard, that I might not be alive when it gets
Yeah.
discovered. but it sucks. I want that motherfucking scene because it looks
Of
crazy.
course, of course. I mean, it's there's so many like little things like that. I mean, the most famous one, of course, no one knows whether it exists or doesn't. Although a lot of people said it does exist. Is the the saw in the head scene from the Big Boss.
Yep,
Just
yep.
a lot of people just want this footage, and I absolutely agree. It's just so sad that a lot of these films we're not getting them in their full like uncut glory, and may
Yeah.
never see them.
But then again, I mean, I went through much of my life just convinced that Shaolin versus Wu Tang only existed in that shitty full screen form, and then I find out that apparently RZA has been sitting on a copy of it for Lord knows how long,
Yeah.
and and same with chess boxing. I mean,
Yeah.
the finding out that a widescreen version of it existed was shocking to me,
Yeah.
and it completely changed how how I thought about that movie. So we're holding on to hope as fans,
That's right.
but
That's
yeah,
right. I hope someone you got that Shaolin and Wu Tang, right? You got the widescreen.
no, I don't. I know that it exists. I've seen a short clip of it,
Hmm.
but and I was hoping that that somebody ripped it off of. I think he used to post them on some website during the
Yeah,
pandemic.
36 Cinema.
That's what it was. So I was hoping someone would rip it, and maybe Kung Fu Robber would do the honors.
Hmm.
Um, and I'm sure some of the homies probably have it like on their hard drive, but I'm also a little old school. I know that physical media is, I don't want to say a dying breed,
Yeah. No, you're right. It pretty much
but
is.
I remember being on Netflix, and then one day and it's like, oh sweet, um, Five Element Ninjas is on there. Awesome. And and that was the first time I watched Five Element Ninjas as opposed to Chinese Super Ninjas.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I remember just being hyped, and like I watched it like a couple times, and then a month later that and virtually all Shaw Brothers material just vanished from Netflix.
Yeah.
So then it was kind of like, well, you know what? If it's in my collection, I can watch it anytime that I want to, and I'm not beholden by rights fees or whatever the fuck it is.
Exactly. Yeah, I think physical media is a must. Although, just putting it out there, if you do want a copy of Shaolin and Wu Tang, let me know. I can hook you up.
I might have to take you up on that.
Yeah, I've got the widescreen.
It's like I love the movie, but again, it hits different when you can actually see everything happening around you, especially that crazy fight in the middle of the movie where they get ambushed by the arrows.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
know there's a lot of shit happening on the sides that's cut off. Hell, even the embedded subtitles get cut off on the full
It's
screen version.
nuts. It's
It's crazy.
crazy. Yeah. Yeah, let me know. I don't have it on Blu-ray or anything, but I definitely have a version I can send your way. So
Appreciate you.
if you need to see
Appreciate you.
it, yeah, no worries. Well, we've been going for 2 hours, which is
Yeah,
pretty
I
impressive.
had a feeling this was going to happen.
Yeah,
Like,
me too. 100%. And to be honest, I'm not going to lie. Could probably talk for another 2 hours.
100%. Because man,
uh,
I do. I mean, I do so many interviews. Obviously, it's centered around like my music
mhm.
and producing and so forth, and it's cool and it's always fun. But it's only so often that you get a chance to to talk about like your other passions
Yeah.
and people who don't like really know me. Apart from like the guys I grew up with, like
Yep.
folks don't really know just how deep like my fandom goes. And I don't know how many movies you have in your collection. I'm sure you've got more than me, but it's like I've got probably close to 1,000 movies. I mean, some of them
Nice.
bootlegs and so forth.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, and my fandom was deep, so it's not just you know just collecting the Raid 2. You
Yeah.
know,
Yeah.
it's like I've got these old school movies from the 70s, and it's like, and I know like the directors and the actors,
Yeah.
and when people ask me, like I'm looking at my collection right now. All right, cool. There's the Chinese boxer, and someone might see that, and I'll be able to tell them about Jimmy Wang Yu,
Jimmy Wang
and
Yu, yeah.
um, and how and he did a spin-off, which was the One Arm Boxer, which
Yep.
eventually became did a sequel of Master of the Flying Guillotine, and the guy who choreographed it was also this guy in Odd Couple, and and it's that web
That's it.
that's 6 degrees of separation,
That is it.
and it's so nerdy, and therefore I can't I can't go to a studio session and talk about, yo, you seen that Meng Fei joint, bro? That doesn't happen. But in this sort of platform, it's like, I can finally nerd out
This is it.
and get that reciprocation.
Absolutely, and you know what? I'm honored to be able to speak to people, especially I'll be honest with everyone. My YouTube channel is very, very small. It's not big in the slightest, but
For now.
yeah, well, hopefully for now, yeah. So I grew up with no one around me that like kung fu films, no one, and to this point, I'm in my early 40s now, and still in my social circle right now, no one likes kung fu movies. So my interaction with people is entirely online. That is it. So
Right.
to be able to sit down and have someone, granted it's a video chat, but to have someone here in front of me and to be able to talk for 2 hours about kung fu films, I've never gotten to do that. It's something that I don't do, or I don't get the ability to do that. So just to sit and just to bounce back and forth, this is like an ultimate pleasure for me. This is amazing.
Oh hell, and I mean, and much like what you do on the podcast, and I know the sort of mission statement of your podcast is to to basically turn non-watchers kind of into believers. And
Yeah.
I mean, I remember watching Drunken Master and obviously losing my shit, and like my best friends at the crib, like I used to just like, yo, we got to watch this movie, like, yeah, like smoke a joint or whatever and watch this movie, like I'm telling you, it's gonna be crazy. And I'd let the homies watch, and and one or two of them would be like, oh, that's cool. um and I remember like uh and I know we've gone like longer than expected,
No, it's all
but
good.
I remember I went to the when I went off to university, and so like I'm meeting all these people for the first time, and obviously I can't bring my entire kung fu movie collection with me, but I picked maybe like my 30 favorite ones.
Yeah.
And and we had like a community TV in like our dorm area, and so I'd be campaigning and trying to put on these Hong Kong and these like Japanese movies, and people are just like looking at me like, who the fuck is this nerd? I'll never forget, man. I went to the mall that day. This was back in like 06, 07, and I bought on DVD Ichi the Killer, that Takashi Miike joint.
A wild flick.
Well, I didn't realize it was that wild at the time. I just thought like the cover looks cool. I know the director. His movies are.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess that should have given it away. And I remember like I got back to the crib, and I'm watching that movie, and I don't know if you've seen it, but
I have.
Literally the first thing that happens in that movie, the first thing. So someone gets like cut up or sliced up, and Ichi is just lurking from like behind a window, and he like jerks off to a plant, like onto a plant or some shit. And so this scene is happening, and people are like walking into the room and just like sort of peeking at what I'm watching, and some like ladies who live like on other floors, and if scaring the hoes is a legit thing, bro. like they were looking at me and they were judging me, and and I kind of just knew then, like, oh boy, like I'm never going to win anybody over.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's that's
I mean,
definitely
the kung fu movies were much more tame, but you
yes.
know, just being a fan of just being a fan of cult films, it elicits some judgmental reactions for sure.
Some of those films are wild. One day, I don't know which one I'd like to do, but one day I'd like to on the podcast just pick a really really wild one and just give it a go and see what happens. I don't know what like some crazy cat-free film like Ebola syndrome or something fucking
Oh,
terrible. That would be fun.
Or you also watch, or have you watched Riccio on the pod yet?
Do you know what? We haven't. We haven't. That would be a really, really good choice because that film is
Because
crazy.
I feel like Cyrus would get a huge kick out of it.
I think you would like
And
it.
Devin would probably be I mean, it's not comedic shenanigans, but
It's shenanigans still.
it's
It's definitely shenanigans.
oh yeah, oh yeah.
That'll be a good one. That'll be a good one. I just bought I don't think we'll ever do anything like this. I'm not even sure I could get it on YouTube, but I just bought Sex and Zen 2.
Oh shit!
So doing something like that would be crazy, but yeah, I'm not sure we could get away with that.
All right. So before we wrap up,
Yeah.
I'm just curious. So I think one of the problems that I had was, I went very, very hard for a time about like in collecting movies. And I was just trying to look for anything with Yun Ping, anything with Sammo, anything
Yep.
with Lau Gailong, anything from my favorite actors, and anything that was sort of eliciting like a lot of buzz at the time. And then I kind of got to a point, and you never really see that day coming. I kind of got to a point where I felt like, yo, I legitimately found everything that I've been looking for.
Yeah.
And collecting anything was just there'd be some re-releases, and you upgrade, but as far as the hunt of trying to find something new and that you haven't
Yep.
seen before, that checks off the criteria, like has that ever hit you?
Oh, 100%. Absolutely. So I think I got to a point where, especially like the old school stuff, I was just done. I couldn't find another avenue, and it sucked. It was a horrible feeling. And I think at the end of the day, for me, I was very lucky in that there's always been blind spots for me. There's always been somewhere I haven't quite delved. Two of those were there is so much 90s waifu out there that I just have not touched.
Right.
I recently got my hands on a Yun Ping film that I didn't even know exist. Have you seen Fire Dragon?
Not in its entirety. And it's actually funny that you brought that up because so my collection is primarily your standard hand to hand kung fu shit.
Yep.
But as a genre, wuxia has just not been something that ever really interested me.
Gotcha.
I mean, I got a couple of them here or there, but when I see some of these sword play movies, and and a lot of them get very fantastical, and
Yep.
and I guess I prefer my stuff a little more grounded, but I mean it's still within obviously the lines of kung fu cinema, and it's like, man, like I kind of wave the white flag, like I found everything that I wanted, and there's this whole other subgenre that I've barely even touched or looked at.
Yeah. That was me. Wuxia was a huge blind spot for me, and I really had to start delving in there. And another one, the second one was, and I really had no interest in the second genre, and not no interest, heroic bloodshed. So I never really looked in that direction because in many ways I was a bit pretentious, because I was just like, kung fu, that's it. I am a kung fu guy. I am a shapes guy. I'm a weapons guy. Put me in this box. This is gunplay. I don't want it. Get rid of it. I'll watch Face Off. I'll watch Con Air or some shit like that. I don't want anything. I'll watch The Killer and Hard Boiled. That's it. That's the extent. But with more of these films coming out now, especially, I just watched The Last Blood, and that blew me away. It's really, really good. So I think I've always had blind spots and I've been very lucky. But in terms of like kung fu films and like shape stuff and classic stuff like that, honestly, right now, I felt like I got to a point where I was finding, like, I must admit, I know a lot of people say there's lots of questions about Wu Tang Collection on YouTube and whether the person that owns it is a shitty person or whether they're a good person. There's lots of questions. But basically, if you're into kung fu films and you run out, look to the Wu Tang Collection. They've got so many crazy films. And I think I delved into there and started going into bashers a little bit more. But yeah,
bashers are great.
Yeah, absolutely. I felt that a lot, and I had a blind spot when it came to bashers as well. So I think there's always stuff out there, and I think definitely delving into TV shows. I will be honest with you that unfortunately none of them are subtitled, so it's very difficult to watch. But if you're interested in just like seeing great fight work, then the TV shows are always a good time.
The clips, the clips you post look crazy, and I kind of just be scratching my head, like, wait a minute, like I consider myself a kung fu fan. Like, why have I never heard of this? And like I read the caption and it's like, oh, it's a Taiwanese TV show.
Yeah,
and
it's
like, oh, that explains it.
Nuts. Rodney, speaking of Rodney, like he's pulling stuff from Singapore and just crazy places with like showing just some of the best shapes you'll ever see, and it's just, where'd you get this from? Like, how did you find this?
Yeah, I had a span or a phase, dare I say. So after Ong Bak came out and Tom Young-goon, and I remember on the forums, I mean, they weren't even available on DVDs or VHS. It was just VCDs, and there was like a bunch of these old Pana movies that that I found. And it's like, oh, okay, well, I guess this is the next evolution of my collection. Now, unfortunately, what I didn't realize was that, you take away Born to Fight and a couple others, and holy hell, do those movies are fucking garbage. And it's like garbage in that like the fighting is inconsistent, and if Pana himself isn't doing the fights, like these guys, it's not really hitting. There's no subtitles, so I have to kind of just guess at stories, but it's just giving that very, very like just low budget. And but I mean the older ones at least had a bit of a charm. I mean there's one I got called Spirited Killer, featuring a then like 17-year-old
Tony Jaa, wasn't it? Yeah.
Yeah, and it was subtitled and everything. Now the movie still sucked, but hey, I got to see him early. Yeah, and absolutely. And every other Thai movie I've seen outside of Chocolate, and I guess the Ong Bak sequels, like I hated all of them. So I'm just like, okay, I'm tapped out. If another one comes out that's legitimately fire, we'll cross that bridge once we get to it. So and it's kind of the same, like, there's a bunch of Korean old school kung fu movies I've never seen, but I don't know. I'm always a little torn because it's like, some of those, at least some of the clips I see, they'd be going a little crazy with the undercranking, and that's a bit of a turn off for me. Although it is kind of cool to just see just different backdrops, and just different areas. So I was always curious about non-Hong Kong and non-Taiwanese kung fu movies, and they just have a different flavor, but sometimes that doesn't always mean good.
Absolutely. I think I dipped my toes in South Korea, and there's some really good stuff out there. If you even take like the well-known ones, like Martial Monks of Shaolin with Dragon Lee, and Huang Zhang Li's in there, like stuff like that. A lot of Dragon Lee flicks are really worth watching. Not necessarily his Bruceploitation, but his old school flicks, they're actually pretty solid. Some good Korean stuff, and I don't know if you're interested at the moment, but there's a lot of stuff hitting mainland China at the moment and going straight to streaming services. And
I see some of it on Haya and shit like that.
Right. There is a film on Haya, which everyone watching, please run and watch this film. Everyone should see it. It's a modern kung fu film, and I believe on Haya, I believe it's called Fearless Kung Fu King. And if you have not watched Fearless Kung Fu King, please do. It is a throwback to the 90s, and it's got some drunken boxing in it. It's got weapons in it, and the fights are solid. They feel new, they feel fresh, but they feel a bit throwback as well. Some wires, not too much, but it's really worth watching. Now, those films, few and far between. Most of the stuff hitting mainland China streaming service is absolutely fucking garbage. But
yeah,
you can find
some of them
gems.
weird. Like you be posting some of these fight clips, and the choreography is fire, but they're trying to be a little too cute with the camera, and it's like giving me motion sickness and shit. Like,
That
fam, you don't have to zoom every single
ab-
every single time a punch is thrown.
Absolutely. That there's a TV series. This is the one that I post all the time. It's called Unrivaled Hero Fang Shi Yu or Fang Sayuk. And that's the one with the amazing choreography, and the zooms are just nuts on it. Unbelievable. But if they just took away the zooms, they would have had an amazing product on their hands. So
Yeah, just
I don't know.
I mean, you know, I get trying to be different, trying to stand out, and you know, if you let the director explain it, he'll give you great philosophical reasons why. But it's like, less is always more. You know.
Yeah, absolutely. Have you watched the Blind Swordsman film with the kid from New Legend of Shaolin in it? I never remember his name. Is it Che Miao? Che Miao? Or
Honestly, his name escapes me because
yeah, it's Say
he's the same
Miao.
kid. He's the same kid who was in My Father's a Hero,
That's
right?
him. Yeah.
Honestly, those are the only two films I've seen him in.
There's a Blind Swordsman flick on Haya right now. It comes out on Blu-ray. It just came out on the 17th, so 2 days ago. It came out on Blu-ray.
So shit. So that kid, I mean, at the time he did those Jet movies, I mean, he couldn't have been any more older than like 10, 11.
Oh yeah, now he's like 40. But
Life's coming at me fast.
that's right. It's crazy, but I implore everyone to watch this film. I swear to God, it's about 70 minutes long. It's short as hell. It's a blind swordsman film, and it is absolutely one of the best martial arts films you'll see this year. Guaranteed.
Crazy.
It's fantastic.
Definitely.
I think it's called. Is it An Eye for an Eye? It might be called An Eye for an Eye. Eye for an Eye, Blind Swordsman, or something like that. It's on Haya. Check it out. It's out on Blu-ray now. It's brief, short, and a sequel is out like in early next year. But it is a really good film. Very worth watching.
Shit. Well, I'm gonna check that out tonight for sure.
Yeah, check it out. Check it out. On that note, we'll go ahead and wrap things up. Thank you so much for the conversation. This is where we throw out some delicious plugs. So go ahead, give us whatever you've got.
I mean, I could spend another like 5 to 10 minutes going through all the plugs, but I'm gonna just keep it. I'm gonna just keep it simple. I got a new album that dropped November the 3rd, called Rediscovery, as you can see right there. So yeah, just 14 tracks, all produced by me, featuring some dope artists, friends of mine, everyone from Ska Zoo, Chester Watson, Homie Brain Orchestra, Brittany Carter, as mentioned before, Sunny Jim from the UK, and more.
Respect to Sunny Jim.
Yeah, always gotta show love to the homie.
I love that dude. I
So
used
yeah,
to check his EPs out back in the day, Sunny Jim.
He's a legend, man. And but we had collaborated on an EP in 2011, which I think he took down some time ago. But you know, if you're a fan of his back in 2010, 2011, then you probably know about that Tall Poppy Syndrome EP. But yeah, honored to have him again, and hopefully we do some more work in the future. But yeah, the album Rediscovery, it's out now on Spotify, Apple Music, iTunes, whatever your DSP of choice is. If streaming is your thing, it's on Bandcamp too. You can just Google the name. And next month, I believe, next month or January. I think next month. Yeah, the vinyl drops. So pre-order is open for that. If you're a fan of hip hop, just that real shit. I got some laid back vibes on there. Yeah, support the kid.
Absolutely, please do. I obviously everyone knows I'm a giant hip hop fan, and I've been
Oh,
bumping.
also, I mean, I promised you like almost 2 years ago that I was going to do up a better custom theme. I ain't forgotten about that.
Dope.
I got to go crate digging, or maybe I'll. There's actually a sample that I heard on Kid with the Golden Arms that the wheels started turning, and
Nice.
I got some ideas there. So stay tuned.
Oh, that'll be awesome. I mean, that's a hell of a feather in my cap to have an Eloquent produced intro. So that's real nice. But yeah,
Yeah.
all hip hop fans, check out the new album. Obviously, I'm a big hip hop fan. I've been bumping it. Love the Sky Zoo track as well. Love Sky Zoo. But yeah, check it out, everyone. As for me, and I'm sure Eloquent, we can find you on socials everywhere,
Oh yeah,
right?
just at ELAQUENT on Twitter, IG. Um, I mean, I guess I'm on Facebook too, but I don't really use it like that. But yeah,
Yeah.
just Eloquent. I mean, if you Google it, or you hop on my website, everything's linked there.
Awesome. As for me, you can find me on all social media platforms. I'm Foo for Thought. If you can't just find me with Foo for Thought, do Foo_for_thought. I'm around. I'm on Twitter. I'm on IG. I've got a Facebook page. All that good stuff. If you like what I do on this channel and you want to send a few cheeky dollars my way, I do have a Patreon. You can go on www.patreon.com/Foo for Thought. On there, we allow you to vote for a film that we do for the podcast episode. We post up a secret extra podcast called Food for Thought Uncut, where we get a bit spicy or a bit deep. It's interesting, and loads of other stuff you can find on there. We're doing more movie commentaries. Our next movie commentary will be on Super Mario Brothers, the old version with Bob Hoskins. So that will be a fun one. So you can check that out. And also, it's YouTube, so I'm going to give you the usual shit. If you want to like, subscribe, share, all that stuff, I would love for you to do so. That would be awesome. Also, just want to mention, I keep forgetting to do this, but since Eloquent is on this particular video, all his links will be found below. I'll go ahead and link all the various platforms that the album's on and stuff like that. So I appreciate you, Eloquent, for coming on.
Yeah, make sure that y'all subscribe on Food for Thought on like the Apple Podcasts. I'm guessing it's on Spotify. All that too.
It's on everything.
Wherever you get your podcasts. And support the homie on the Patreon. It's definitely worth the $5. A lot of great content there, and you get to support more shit like this.
I appreciate you. Thank you so much for coming on, and I'd love to have you on again sometime if you can fit some time in.
Hey, just shine the bat signal. I mean, hell, I'll come back next week. No, but whenever, man. As I'm sure you noted, because we went very, very over time. Like kung fu is like my second love. After hip hop, and you can tell I don't get to nerd out and talk about it as often as I'd like.
Awesome.
But yeah, I mean, there's so many cool movies, so many cool stories and directors and so forth. Hey, maybe the next time we can do one of those. I saw you on someone else's YouTube. I forget his name.
Martial Arts Film Freak, doing it like a tier list.
Yeah, you did like a tier list of like Samo movies, and I think you did like a Jackie one too.
Yeah, we can do that.
Yeah, well, I mean, we could do a number of different things, but
yeah, a few. I got a few gears turning, so we can definitely work something out.
We'll just holler at me anytime, my guy.
Awesome, sounds good. Well, thank you everyone for watching. Really, really appreciate you all for coming along on this channel, and of course, as normal, we will catch you next time.